Although crossings at the U.S. southern border are at historic lows, the number of families and unaccompanied minors entering the country has been increasing. Amna Nawaz was granted access to the Border Patrol's Yuma sector operations in Arizona. This is the first of two reports, starting with a view from the U.S. side of the border and a warning. Viewers may find some images disturbing.
Under the hot Arizona sun, with few belongings and well-worn shoes, these migrants have just crossed onto American soil after the nearly 4,000-mile journey from Guatemala. Some in the group allow us to shoot video. Florencio says he and his 4-year-old son, Walter, traveled for 30 days. He's desperate for work and says there was none back home. He and the others surrendered to U.S. Border Patrol agents. The agents did not allow us to record interviews with the group. But they invited us to spend a day seeing what they do here in the Yuma sector in southwest Arizona. The groups they're encountering in recent years have changed dramatically. A decade ago, 90% of immigrants caught crossing illegally were single adult men from Mexico. Today, nearly 90% are families and unaccompanied children from Central America. That change, they say, is stretching their resources like never before. At their headquarters, Border Patrol shows us where families are first detained.
Inside the headquarters is what they call a processing center, where families are held for about 3 days. And we're not allowed to shoot any picture, but we can tell you what we saw. It's basically a giant cement room, and around the perimeter of the room are a number of holding cells that are broken up by population. So you have mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, but the single most crowded room was for unaccompanied males, just dozens and dozens of teenagers lying like sardines in this one cement room. What really strikes you about the room, though, is how many children there are, toddlers running around, infants in their mother's arms. The one thing border officials will tell you is everyone can agree, this is no place for families and children.
We could record video in what they call their Costco, a room once filled with office supplies, now packed with diapers, formula, and family essentials, unpacked here by some of the 90 National Guard troops sent to backfill staffing.
This is what we call an enforcement zone, so this is triple layer fencing here.
Yuma Sector Chief Anthony Prevasnik says he's asked for more agents. He already has funding from last year to update 25 miles of border fencing.
This will all be replaced.
Into what?
It will be a 30-feet Ballard-style fence.
His resources, he says, haven't changed since 2012, but the job has. Prevasnik estimates 35 to 40% of his current manpower goes to processing and caring for the families and children in custody.
We just had a lady last week who delivered twins 2 months premature. And they see this. They see sick kids in our custody. And last year alone, we took 550 kids to the hospital. Over 1,700 total here just in the Yuma area. That's a huge strain on our resources because they're doing things that are not enforcement related.
But agents concede no barrier is 100% effective. They point us towards these surveillance videos showing families climbing over sections of wall. The 14-year-old girl in this clip broke her vertebrae from the fall. Injuries, they say, are common and further stretch their resources.
How far back does this date?
This dates back to about 1990.
Chief Prevasnik believes updating the older wall will dissuade people from trying to cross illegally.
When you see people who are willing to dig under this and climb over barbed wire and build makeshift ladders to climb over additional fencing, do you think that that's enough to deter people to try to breach it in some way?
The majority of the population, yes.
Yeah.
It will deter the majority. And what we're trying to do is impede and deny entry into this area. And so 87% of the people that we apprehend right now are family units and unaccompanied alien children. They won't go over a 30-foot Ballard. Is it going to push it somewhere else? Likely, yes.
Later in the day, Border Patrol encountered a second group of Guatemalan migrants. This mother of 2 young children asked we don't show their faces. She's fleeing her abusive husband. She and the rest of this group of 12 waded across the Colorado River to get into the U.S.
These are things that we have to interact with here on the ground.
Deputy Chief Carl Landrum walked us through the brush to show us where they crossed.
The fact that people are willing to make a crossing like this with little kids tells you what people are willing to do to come to the States.
It definitely shows that people want to experience the American dream. And we would like for everybody that could be a part of that legally to be a part of it.
But immigration attorney Laura Bellos of the Arizona-based Florence Project says resources should go to immigration courts, not physical barriers.
If you look at the history of the border over the last 20 years, and increased walls within cities then push people out into deserts. So if there's walls in deserts, it's going to push people into canyons and rivers where people are likely to have even more dangerous crossings. Smuggling will be even more expensive. That then makes everyone along the border less safe.
Chief Pravaznik says whatever the solution, the current situation is unsustainable.
Look, we can't arrest our way out of the problem. That's not going to solve the problem. So we have to figure out, and this is not a Border Patrol solve, this comes from legislation, updated laws.
As the policy debate in Washington drags on, there's little relief in sight for both those patrolling this border and those seeking to cross it.
Officials say the vast majority of those crossing are families seeking stability or safety, though they also say background checks sometimes reveal someone with a criminal history. Judy, it is worth noting that criminal history often means an immigration violation, not necessarily a violent crime, but Border Patrol officials' bigger concern is who they're missing while they're busy caring for these families and children. So they say they want everyone to cross legally, and that will be the focus of our piece tomorrow evening.
And we're very much looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.